Residents, do we have anyone signed in? Jordan Glass?
Good evening, Jordan Glass for Gila Harbor. Tonight's episode is titled, "If You Build It, They Will Come." And that's not always such a good thing. Rye has known about the general problem of West Nile virus and specific complaints regarding standing water, garbage dumping, lack of reed control, the sewage systems on Hen Island since conservatively 2007. Yet nothing has been effectively done to resolve the issue of more than 33,000 gallons of stagnant water allowed to fester on the island, nothing about the lack of potable water, nothing about the foul, feces-infested roof runoff being used for showering, sink water, and dishwashing. As of last week, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, located on the internet at cdc.gov, has identified at least 334 human West Nile virus infections so far this year, including in New York. The impact on children, the elderly, and pregnant women is greatest, but no one is immune to the severe impact of the virus. In fact, not just the elderly, but according to the CDC, this is a quote, people over 50 are more likely to develop serious symptoms of West Nile virus. They do get sick and should take special care to avoid mosquito bites, unquote. I wonder if you noticed the name of the organization I cited, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The name is neither an error nor a bureaucrat's desire for additional acronyms. Prevention, that's the ounce part of the pound of cure. In fact, notably missing from CDC's name is the word cure. Because sometimes the cure isn't the answer. Prevention is. Sometimes the cure is too late. This year, West Nile virus appears to have traveled to Rye second, this time from Mamaroneck, but usually Rye is the first place to test positive. This makes the lack of response by the City Council even more confusing and frustrating, as the city has had actual notice of both the potential and actual problem, and has still taken no known precautions, nor implemented any preventive nor corrective measures. This time there was no guessing if or when the virus would strike. Mosquitoes know no bounds. The two towns are not separated by a mountain range over which the critters can't cross. The CDC also warns that West Nile virus transmission can occur between a pregnant mother and her unborn child, leading to adverse health effects. Gambling isn't legal in Rye, but by doing nothing effective, that is exactly what you are doing. And you're doing it with things much more precious than a few dollars lost on the flip of a card or the slip of a slot. However, the CDC offers these non-rocket science solutions. Get rid of mosquito breeding sites by emptying standing water, including items as small as flower pots and buckets, and yes, even barrels. Barrels would be the operative word here. They advise to change the water in pet dishes and replace the water in bird baths weekly. Well, if you have to change the water in a pet dish, can you imagine what's going on in the rain caches and the swamp grasses on Hen Island? They suggest drilling holes in tire swings so that the water drains out, keeping children's wading pools empty and on their sides when they're not being used. CDC is addressing areas containing as little as a few ounces to dozens of gallons. We're trying to alert you to thousands, indeed tens of thousands of gallons of stagnant, not just standing water, all the surface area such amounts imply. Here's what I can tell you. I have many friends who have children, and equally as many who have relatives over 50, and a few of whom are pregnant. Among some of them, if their children attended one of your clubs, or your schools, or your daycare centers, or your recreational areas, or your churches, or any area within a mosquito's flight length of Hen Island, and one of their children got sick, the biggest public health problem you would have would not be your political groups. CDC advises that in a small number of cases, West Nile virus has been spread through blood transfusions, organ transplants, and breastfeeding. So while you may not consider yourself at risk, I imagine at least one of you has a child. Know someone about whom you care who might be breastfeeding now or before this mosquito season ends, has a relative over 50, or perhaps you fall into this category yourself. Remember, mosquitoes don't know about politics. They don't care about your political party, your race, your age, your color, how much money you have or don't have, how smart you are, or whether you're just like the rest of us, whether you're blessed with a baby or have one on the way, whether you're blessed with or average by old age so far, whatever or whoever you are, you have either built it or failed to prevent it. Now watch them come. Perhaps you will get away with it, but I can tell you this. In my part of the industry, it's not always the other guy, the other mom, the other dad, baby, son, or daughter. It's not always them who gets bit, or hurt, or sick, or worse. Because from where each of us stands, the other guy is always you. And one of us is always wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. Do you have a list? We had a couple people sign. Mr. Tartaglione.
Mayor French, I'm here tonight not only to speak about the mosquito breeding factory that you've allowed to progress on Hen Island, but also an issue that places thousands of children and senior citizens in Rye in a very dangerous position. Hundreds of unsuspecting children, parents, grandparents boat, swim, sail, and play on a daily basis at the summer camps on Milton Point and throughout Rye. Shenorock and Cloverleaf Short Clubs, American Yacht Club, the Rye Nature Center, and Rye Golf Club are all located less than a quarter of a mile from Hen Island. Each one of those locations have day camp facilities, and each one of those is in the city of Rye. The city of Rye is where you took your oath to protect the health and safety and welfare of the public. Once again, you have failed to live up to your word. Last year, Susie Allman, a current member of your Cable and Communications Committee, wrote a letter to the editor of the Rye Record depicting the horrific mosquito conditions on Hen Island. I recited that letter to you, and to this day you still ignore it. To quote one section of Ms. Allman's letter, "Protecting the health and well-being of its citizens is among the essential functions of government." You find this funny, Mr. Mayor? Since the inception of West Nile virus, Rye has almost always been the first community to test positive. Have you ever questioned or been concerned about why or where those test samples were taken?
Go ahead, to remarks.
I'm sorry, sir?
Continue.
You don't have an answer?
Continue with your remarks.
I have 2 points that I'd like to make. Point number one is this West Nile virus mimics the coyote problem that we had a few years back. At the onset of the coyote confrontation, you told us that this was nature and we should learn to live with this issue until a child was attacked by a coyote in our own yard. Well, here we are again with another life-threatening issue that endangers the health and safety, especially of our young and our elderly. The only difference is that in this scenario, you can control the outcome. You can stop the mosquito factory on Hen Island. You can put an end to 33 gallons of illegal water storage, which is presently breeding mosquitoes by the millions in Rye. Do we have to wait until a child or one of our senior citizens is infected with this dreaded disease just because you don't want to take a stance against your friend and neighbor, Mr. Volpe? A few months back, yourself and Mr. Pickup said that covering those tanks would eliminate the problem, but your answers could not be further from the truth. The tanks presently in use for domestic water collection on Hen Island are not sealed and cannot be sealed. Sealed means airtight. These tanks cannot be sealed because they require water to enter through leaders and gutters from rooftops. Mosquitoes breed in rain gutters, and larvae enters tanks through leaders and gutters that cannot be sealed or covered, as you would like the public to believe. What needs to transpire here is enforcement that would require Hen Island to drill wells or connect to city water via an easement that is presently in place. once again, the financial obligation would fall on the homeowners of Hen Island and not on the taxpayers of Rye. It is unfair that 34 Selfridge cottage owners are allowed to jeopardize the health and safety of 15,000 Rye residents because you, Mayor French, are friends with the family that controls Hen Island, the Hopis. These issues of stored water collection, non-potable water, and sewage entering the Long Island Sound are easily fixable. As a homeowner and a resident of Hen Island, with this new information about the positive test results for West Nile virus on Hen Island and at the Rye Nature Center, I, as well as other cottage owners, believe that Hen Island should be closed immediately until such time that these life-threatening conditions are resolved, not only for the protection of Hen Island residents, but also for the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the entire Greenhaven, Milton Point, and the City of Rye communities. My second point is, in addition to the positive results on Hen Island, 4 of the other positive test results in Rye were located at the Rye Nature Center. Can you tell me why you have not informed the public of this? If it was your child that was attending the Nature Center or any of the other day camps next to Hen Island, would you like a choice to send your kid off to camp with some extra bug spray or some other instructions so that they could protect themselves? Or if it were your kid, wouldn't you like to have the choice to change day camps and send your child to a camp that might not have West Nile virus, maybe in another community? Just what kind of human being are you, Mr. Mayor? In my book, you're a disgusting individual that should be relieved of his position today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other residents that would like to speak?
Can I
Yes,
ask,
sure.
when did we find out about,
We haven't. There's been no notification. I don't know where Mr. Tartaglia gets his information, but the only notification is on the Department of Health website, and that's July 20th notification for West Nile and Mamaroneck. What he's conferring about this evening, I have no idea where he gets his information, if it's accurate, or anything else. Because we have not, Mr. Tartaglione, you've spoken, so if you don't mind.
You're right.
I'm speaking to the council. I'll address you in a minute. So the bottom line from the city's perspective is we have not received any communications about any of the information that Mr. Tartaglione spoke about this evening. The only information that we have is what we presented to you from the July 20th information from the Department of Health. That's it.
so Ray, can I ask you, where did you get that information?
I was at a meeting at Westchester County last Tuesday. I find it hard to believe that Westchester County told me that there was a mosquito infestation and that there was positive tests for West Nile virus in Rye, and they failed to tell Mr. Pickup.
I find that pretty upsetting as well, but
You should find it very upsetting. Let me just continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
I asked the people at the county if Rye was notified, and I was told, yes, they were notified by telephone.
Then I would like to know who you spoke with, and I would like to follow up on that.
Here's-
Because
here's-
I
here's-
really find that shocking.
Here's-
Well, I can help you with that. Nobody from Westchester County has notified the city of Rye, whether it's the building department, the city manager's office, or any public official in the city of Rye of any of the information that you discussed this evening. Period. End of story.
Let me quote from Mr.
Can I be any clearer than that?
Let me
Do
quote
you
from...
understand that, Mr. Tartaglione? I want to make sure you and I are clear, because
I'm gonna-
sometimes we have a problem communicating.
I'm going to answer your
Is
question.
that clear?
And I'm going to quote from Mr. Larry Lehman. I was born at night, but not last night. You're a liar, Mr. Pickup.
Well, I resent
But
that
gentlemen, you know what? This
characterization,
is
but
going
I will
nowhere.
again state so that you understand, Mr.
Here's
Tartaglione.
what I would suggest you do.
Nobody has contacted by
Here's
telephone,
what I would suggest
by
you
email,
do.
by
Instead of
letter, by any other way, Mr. Tartaglione.
Tartaglione.
No one has contacted the city.
the citizens that you are hired to protect.
I would
gonna move
repeat-
on,
My
sir.
suggestion is that you contact the
All right.
state.
Maybe I should speak
Contact
more
the
slowly, Mr.
Scott,
Tartaglione.
we're gonna move on, sir.
No one has contacted the city. Thank you, Mr. Tartaglione.
I got your message.
Thank you.
My suggestion to you is if I got this information, and I'm not coming up here trying to scare residents of the city, I could back anything I say up with facts.
Your
If I
motivation
got
is
this-
irrelevant to
excuse
me.
I
If they
didn't interrupt
contact
you.
me,
Now
we will
don't
certainly
interrupt me.
contact the appropriate authorities.
My suggestion to you was, because you're a professional, that you should do your job. Because I did your job here and I got this information, that you should have got a week ago.
Again, Mr. Tartaglione, nobody has contacted the city about any public safety issue surrounding West Nile virus at any point in time in the
Again,
current
Mr.
year.
Pickup, you're a liar. Thank you.
Come on.
Really, Ray? I mean, come on, grow up.
Let's move on. All I can tell you is, Catherine, to your question, I got an email from Councilman Sack Friday afternoon. I immediately called the county, and they said, no reason to be alarmed. There have been some tests. We're going to continue tests, and we're going to monitor it, and we'll be issuing a report. We've had some sightings, as the press release says, from 2 weeks ago, around the county. So, based on Joe's email, I called to verify. They said there's no reason. Then I called Scott. They said they're going to be issuing a report. And that's where we stand. Okay, we're going to move on.
Here's what I have in my hand, Mr. Mayor, a report from the New York State Laboratory that did the testing on Hen Island and at the Rye Nature Center. So I don't care what you have and what you don't have, it's what you should have.
Fine. We
Your
understand.
job is to protect the people. You should have stopped the breeding on Hen Island
Right.
5 years ago.
Right. So what they did say is, on the testing, there were no potable water issues, no sewage issues, some traces of West Nile virus, but there's no threat to public safety. They will be contacting the city with a report, which is consistent with what happened in Mamaroneck. Laura?
I just have to say, I'm a little incensed that the county actually sat down and gave you a report that they didn't give us. Honestly, I think that's bad public policy. I mean, why should a private citizen get a report before the governing body
Because I'm a
gets
private
it?
citizen that does his homework. But that's not the issue. The issue isn't why I got the information. The information is, why doesn't the city admit that they got the information? And why doesn't the city make this public information? And why doesn't the city protect the health and safety of their residents?
We get the
And
point.
why doesn't the city stop Hen Island from collecting 33,000 gallons of stagnant water? And why, out of 17 positive test results this year, why did 15 of them test positive within 5 miles of Hen Island? It's not an accident.
You want to leave a copy with the clerk of the report? So
No,
at
I
least
don't want to
we'll-
leave a copy of the
we'll
clerk.
let- Then we'll wait for the county's report. Scott, you call the Department of Health in the morning, we'll get a copy of the report.
Can we just see it?
No, because if I give you a copy of the report, then you're going to take the person who gave me the report, and that person will be out of a job.
Okay.
So I'm protecting them. I'm telling you
You're
it's
not
true.
protecting the
And
children,
I'm telling
but you're
you, I'm
protecting
telling
the
you
source.
it is.
My God, people are dying right now, and you're not going to hand over this report?
Listen, I don't have to hand
An
you a report. I'm telling
epidemic,
you.
and you're holding on, protecting your
No.
source? I'm
No,
outraged.
no, I'm telling you that the
Shocked.
report is in my hand.
Shocked.
Okay, be shocked. I'm telling you the report is in my hand, and I'll read you the dates of
Is
the
there
test.
gambling going on here? Okay, all right.
Is there
Sorry.
gambling going on
Okay,
here?
all right.
Is there?
That's from
Hen Island's only
Casablanca.
a quarter of a mile from your house, sir. And it's only a quarter of a mile from your house, ma'am. And it's only a quarter of a mile from your house, ma'am. And it's only a quarter of a mile from your house, sir. Ms. Killian, I don't know where you live.
We're
more
gonna
than
move
a quarter
on.
of a mile.
Any other
Okay.
residents? Doug, were you here to speak? Welcome.
While Doug is walking up, the one thing I would say is Laura and I went on the county website today, and there is a listing on the county website of West Nile instances in the city of Rye for the month of July. Scott, you forwarded us some sort of press release today that goes back a few weeks that doesn't cover, apparently, other information that Laura and I were able to find on the website. Now, on the website, it doesn't say where in Rye or where anywhere else the West Nile was found. And I have to say that I am curious to know more information about it. And, you know, I agree. You know, the county should, if they haven't given it to us, they should be giving it to us so that at least we know. I mean, I don't think there's any, you know, need to cause alarm in the public, but I think that people, you know, just would like to know, I would like to know where it was found, what it means. Also on the website that Laura and I looked at, you know, the county does say the way to prevent West Nile is to prevent standing water. So, you know, there's always been this, you know, dispute or argument about the standing water on Hen Island. You know, I would like someone from the county to come in and tell us whether or not the standing water that is allegedly or apparently on Hen Island should be eliminated as per their own guidelines. And they'll give us the answer. I mean, I'm no expert in West Nile or mosquitoes or anything, but the county purports to be. So number one, I'd like to get more information from the county as to what the West Nile issue is right now and what the results have been and where the results have been found. And two, if Rye Nature Center or Hen Island are indeed two of the places where the West Nile has been found and there are standing water issues at either one of those two places, what can we do or what should we do to alleviate that? Pretty simple. So, you know, rather than sit here and say, gee, the county hasn't called us, why don't we call the county
I did.
and
So,
say, hey, get in here.
We did. Once I got your email, I called the county. They said they're monitoring it, they're gonna issue us a report, and that's, as of Friday afternoon, that's where we stood, okay? So we will call again tomorrow, Scott.
Well, it
Joe,
sounds
the
like,
only program the county has for any kind of mosquito control is our larvicide program. And when people in past summers have turned in dead birds when there's been those types of issues, the county has not issued any type of warning, alert, stay indoors, stay away from these areas. That's not the way this issue has been handled. It's a public awareness issue. There is no mitigation. There is no violation. There's not going to be any additional activity beyond the larvicide program that they currently have. When we asked them, the only county in New York State that aggressively sprays for mosquitoes is Suffolk County. And when we asked that question, the county said they are not interested in an aerial spraying program.
You know, I think part of it is that, I mean, I live across from, right next to standing water all the time. It's called the Rye Meeting House and the Bird Homestead. And every time we have a thunderstorm, there's standing water all over the place. I don't know, you know, what the acreage is, but it's a lot of standing water. And of course, that's replicated all over Rye. We live around wetlands. So for the idea of our eliminating standing water, I mean, the meeting house itself, after a rainstorm, there's the meeting house, and then there's standing water. So are we going to fill in around the meeting house? No, we're not. Because it's part of the wetlands and it's part of this, and so on and so forth. So, or are we going to take the step towards radical spraying? I think that would be for the citizens of this county to decide whether or not we're going to do something like that, like DDT, et cetera, et cetera. But you can't have it both ways, which is to maintain sites that have standing water, which we do, and at the same time say, well, we don't want to have any standing water. It's the nature of Rye that we have standing water. So I just don't see this happening.
Mr. Carey?
Just
No,
just as
I'm sorry.
yeah. A couple of things. One, I think that's a good point, Peter, about the standing water in other parts of Rye, because, you know, I was thinking Pondview and Sharon Lane. I mean, there's actually a huge pond there. That's a big basin of standing water. And those people that live there, I mean, it's a lovely neighborhood, but they've got a huge pond, hence the name of the road. But I really have to say, here you have a report in your possession that apparently has more information. You, Ray, have more information than anyone sitting here on this dais.
And I'll be happy to share that with you.
Well, you
I'm
know,
happy to hand you the paper. I'll be glad to read down to you the locations, the testing dates.
But there's
the
something,
finding
you
dates.
have
I'll
to
be glad
agree
read
with
it all to
me.
you.
I would hope you would agree with me. There's something clearly wrong when one government is not talking to another government. When the mayor calls on Friday and is told we'll be issuing a report, apparently the report is in your hand.
I would say the mayor has problems in paradise. That's what I would say.
Well, I clearly you don't want to share with anyone, and I'm not going to ask for an exception to the rule here for myself on who your source is, but what I am asking you right now is I want you to go back to that source, and I want a name. Who in Rye was contacted about this? Who knew what when? Because I have to tell you, it is so disturbing to, I think, a group of us that we're
Here's-
the elected body here, and I get my information from you on this.
Catherine,
And I'm not doubting you.
Catherine, you should not be angry at me. You should not be angry at who gave me this
I'm not
report.
angry at you.
You should be angry at Mr. Pickup, who once again is lying to you about receiving this information.
You know what?
Yes,
I am not going to go there. I
Okay,
don't think
okay,
that
so let's
that's
not-
the
let's not
case.
go there.
I really
Let's not
want
go
to
there.
get a name. I want to know.
I'd like to address Mr. Jovanovich's comment about what happens after it rains. The standing water that you're talking about after it rains, Mr. Jovanovich, and the reason why I'm so experienced about this is because I've taken courses in New Haven for mosquito control. I've been up there. I've been certified in mosquito control. Contrary to probably what Mr. Pickup did, but when I was up there with city managers
You
and
know what, let's
DPW.
just stop.
But
You
in
know
any
what,
event.
I don't want to hear it, because if you're
Well,
going
Mr.
to keep
Mr.
throwing
Pickup keeps
shots
telling me
again,
he's
no,
I'm throwing shots because he keeps telling me he's a professional and he's doing his job, and he's not.
If you're going to keep making these shots
Okay.
about people's
I'll
integrity,
try-
then
I'll try
I
not
don't
to.
want to hear you.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll try not to. But anyway.
Laura, do you
No,
have a
you're
comment?
right.
The point that I was
I did have a
making, the point that I was making is the standing water you're referring to dissipates within 24 hours. The problem that we have here-
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. When, after it rains, you're talking about the standing water after a rainfall?
You got to visit our neighborhood. It doesn't go away. in
Visit your
24 hours.
neighborhood? My girlfriend lives in your neighborhood.
Well, come on around.
I'm at your neighborhood
Visiting
6
her
days a
enough,
week.
then.
Come on around. It doesn't go in.
Okay, all right, anyway.
Wish
So
it did, but it
what we're
doesn't.
dealing with here, what we're talking about is we're talking about standing, stagnant, collected water. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. If the Center for Disease Control and the county and the state tell you to remove standing water from bird baths, from tires, from children's toys, you have to understand that what the conditions that we have on Hen Island, where every home has about 1,000 gallons of water that they have to take showers with, to wash their dishes, you have to believe that that water that comes from the roof would be a breeding spot for West Nile virus. You also have to believe that on Hen Island, when the debris floats up on shore and they take that debris and they store it in the reed areas, that you have acres and acres of breeding sites for West Nile virus. And you have to believe that these millions of mosquitoes and salt marsh mosquitoes, strong flyers, they fly 25 miles. I say they only fly 5 miles because that's where a good average figure is. But 5 miles from Hen Island encompasses all the rye. It goes past 95. Now, you can't tell me that these millions of mosquitoes are sitting on Hen Island. They're not. They're at the clubs. They're at the day camps. They're where the children of Rye are on a daily basis in the summer. And we should be doing something about it. And the first thing we should be doing about it is get rid of the standing water on Hen Island, because Hen Island is the biggest mosquito infestation in Westchester County. And it's your responsibility, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to remove that.
Laura, you had a comment or a question?
I just think that we owe it to the public to add some clarity on the West Nile issue right now, because I'm afraid that some of this is going to be a bit out of context. Because from what I understand, because when I learned about this, I didn't do it Friday afternoon, but this morning I did try and figure out what I could learn about what's going on with West Nile in the county of Westchester. It's my understanding that right now there are no reported cases of West Nile virus in humans in Westchester County as of this summer. That's my understanding, and if anybody knows anything else, please share that with me now. But I think this council cares very deeply about whether or not the public is at risk of contracting West Nile virus. So I'd like to put that out there. The second thing I'd like to put out there is that I think that this incidence of West Nile virus that we're seeing this summer is consistent with what we've seen in past summers. And that doesn't necessarily make it safe, and that doesn't make it right. But this is also not something that is new in Westchester this year, but it's part of what we've experienced in the past. So I think it's important that the public have perspective and not panic that there's a big West Nile infestation in Westchester County, and in particularly in Rye right now. That doesn't mean we shouldn't deal with what the county tells us is going on with West Nile in the city of Rye, but I just would like to make sure that people have some perspective on this at this point. And as for the standing water issue, I've not been educated like other people on the council have on exactly what standing water issues are in Hen Island. I've certainly read things in the paper over the years, and I think that standing water is one of those things they do say mitigate when there's a risk of West Nile virus. But in the little bit of research I was able to look at today, there are ways to have cisterns with standing water and still reduce the mosquito breeding ground in those cisterns. And in fact, I read EPA publications and publications in states across the country about why collecting rainwater for non-potable uses in homes is something that governments across America are actually encouraging right now. So if there's a way that we can make it safer on Hen Island, then I think that is something we could possibly look at. But I don't know that the cisterns are the problem. It may be the coverings or whatever it was that was spoken about in the past that you can use on cisterns.
Okay. First, I'd like to address your cisterns that you believe that they could make safe, and what you're referring to when you say governments are encouraging cistern water collection. You can do it. You can make it safe. You could put what they call Vectobac or mosquito dunks, or what they use in the catch basins, which is a larvicide. But you can't put that larvicide when you pump that house into the water and you wash your dishes with it. You can't put that larvicide in our tanks when you have to take a shower in that. You can't put that larvicide in there.
I understand what you're talking about, because
Okay.
there are differences between using cisterns for commercial use and using it for home use. There are ways to mitigate against mosquitoes for home use. And again, this is not the city of Rye. I mean, in some respects, we do have to defer to the Westchester County Board of Health. We don't have Board of Health. So that's what our position has been
Okay.
all along, is that we have to defer to them, and we'll follow
Well-
their recommendations on what to do as to these
Okay.
health issues.
So then why hasn't, if this has been going on for 5 years, why hasn't Mr. Pickup, since this is a city manager form of government, contacted Westchester County and said, we have 33,000 gallons of cistern water on Hen Island. What are we going to do to make sure that that water isn't breeding West Nile virus and it's not creating a mosquito breeding ground? Why hasn't that been done until today? Why is somebody just saying today, in 2012, after I've been at this podium since 2007, we should take a look at this?
I don't mean to rehash things that have been going on for many, many years. What I meant to say is that we deferred to the County Board of Health in making their recommendations as to what gets done on Hen Island. So,
Okay.
Hen Island has
Okay.
been inspected and re-inspected and visited and revisited. It might be the most inspected, piece of property in the city of Rye. So I
Inspected.
think that's a slightly disingenuous statement.
It's
Mr.
not disingenuous, sir.
Tartaglia.
It's been inspected and re-inspected, and the inspectors walk around like this with their eyes closed.
Well, come on, Mr. Tutt, that's not fair.
It's not fair?
No.
It's not fair.
Don't impugn the integrity of everybody who doesn't believe in your opinion, because quite frankly, it's old and rather
You
boring.
don't
All
have to
right,
believe in my
that's-
opinion,
All right,
sir.
okay.
That'll put a punctuation mark
Come on.
on this, Mr.
So
Carey.
my other comment was about the early detection. The reason why we have what we have is because we've had such a warm winter. And that's why the mosquitoes are breeding so much more this year than they were last year. So we don't have what we always had. We do have a larger infestation this year. They're worse on Hen Island than they've ever been, but they're worse all over Westchester than they've ever been. And I don't know about if we don't have anybody that's been infected in Westchester. I hope that that's true, and I would believe you if you read it, as long as you read it from a reliable source. But I think Mr. Glass reported tonight that we had 337 cases in the United States this year. And I bet you that each one of those cases was probably from a different town. I don't think you're going to have 50 in one town. And all it takes is one. If it's one of your children, you're going to be angry. If it's one of your children, you're going to be angry. But up until now, nobody cared about Hen Island. But now all of a sudden, when it's starting to affect all the kids in all the day camps along the Milton Point areas, now it's a different ballgame. So let's play ball.
Mr. Glass?
I can keep this brief. I just want to give you some statistical information that may be helpful. The first thing is that the incubation period is 3 to 14 days. So it's entirely possible that someone was infected. We won't know about it for 2 weeks. The 334 people that I was talking about, and this is on the CDC site, is in 10 states, including New York. Otherwise, I wouldn't have cited it. It includes much of the Northeast. People who have, in fact, been infected have been reported as close as New Jersey. Women who are pregnant often won't find out that the fetus has been infected until the child is born. So it's possible that someone who's pregnant now may not know for several months. Go ahead.
My point in saying that there's no human infection is to put it in perspective for people who are worried about West Nile infection. I think when people hear West Nile, there's a panic response. So I appreciate your statistics. We all know the seriousness of West Nile virus, but my point was truly to put it in perspective that we don't have reported cases in Westchester right now.
Well, we don't know that yet because of the incubation period.
There are
Mr.
no
Tartaglianone's
reported
point, which
cases.
was correct, as to this winter, which was different than previous winters, it being so warm, nothing really went dormant. The bug population didn't go dormant, plant populations didn't go dormant, there's a lot of difficulty in some fungus, mold, and so on. But this year particularly is a much different problem that we've encountered in the past. Not trying to raise public fear, I'm trying to raise public awareness. Look, I was in the computer business in the 1990s. Everybody heard of the year 2000 problem. When it didn't happen, everyone said it's because there was no problem. No, it's because we solved the problem before it became a problem. Solving something before it becomes a problem doesn't mean it's not a problem. It just means we prevented it. All I'm asking you to consider is the opportunity that you have now to prevent it before it becomes a problem. Once it becomes a problem, you can't turn that clock back. It is possible that the numbers will be particularly low. But if it's you or your child or someone who you love, all of a sudden that number, that N is 1, N is everything. So the only point I was making, I don't disagree with you about the fact that there may not be any reported numbers yet. First of all, they don't come out every day. But the incubation period to consider, pregnancy there's a latency period there from anywhere from 1 to 8 months, depending on when a person might get infected. The season has just begun. This lasts through September, October. And depending upon how warm the fall is, or how wet the seasons are, determines how long this goes on. Remember, standing water, stagnant water, brackish water, 3 different things. Standing, clear water, much less opportunity for breeding. Stagnant water, greater opportunity for breeding. Brackish water, like you have on Hen Island and elsewhere, greatest opportunity for breeding. So that's why that's a hotspot. I have no interest in the politics of any of that. I'm simply talking about the health and safety aspects of it. That's a brackish area. That's why it has my attention and concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. Mr. Carroll?
Let me finish it off here.
Sure.
If the camera can see this, you've all seen this before. Those are oil drums, but they have no tops. They're just filled with water. Okay, that's on Hen Island right now. There's lots of other shots like this. And when that report that Mr. Tartaglione got from the county is published, you will see the concentration of West Nile virus larvae across the entire county is the highest on Hen Island and at the Rye Nature Center. The highest number of count of pupa infected are in those 2 spots, all of Westchester County, folks. Let's get real. This is not a bird bath. You've been looking at these for 5 years. What's so special about those people out there? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
It's the briefest question, I promise. So I have to ask, Ray, when did you make contact with Councilman Sack and let him know?
I never spoke to Councilman Sack about it.
That's me.
That was you, Ted? When was that?
Friday.
Friday.
So,
Thank you.
Well, let me answer that. You have a legal responsibility at this table. I have a moral responsibility. When he shared that with me, I'm a child of Rye. I'm also born and raised around the American Yacht Club. I made 2 calls. I asked Joe if he'd heard anything. He said no. I talked to Larry Kaiser, American Yacht Club. He said no. I said, well, get ready. Officially, you will be notified. But just start thinking about it. I expected the government to act. It didn't.
Mrs. Brett, I think we could spend a couple more minutes on this since it is so important. One of the things that you spoke about are those cistern tanks. and one of the things Mr. Pickup and Mayor French has spoken about in the past has been covering those cistern tanks. Now, I'm hoping that the camera is focusing in on this, because a lot of times when I bring these presentations, she doesn't do that up in the control room. So, Nicole, if you're listening, if you could just zoom in on this, it's important. This is a 55-gallon drum that's covered with mosquito netting. And as you could see, it's more susceptible to West Nile virus than if there was nothing on there. This one here has a wood cover. There's 1, 2, 3. That's 400 gallons, that's 800 gallons, that's 1,200 gallons of water at this house on Hen Island. It's been there every day that I've been complaining about this since 2007. This weekend, when I found out that they had 5 positive test results at the Rye Nature Center, I went over to the Rye Nature Center and I found this drum. It's a bathtub loaded with water. To me, it looked very similar to these here. So it makes sense to me, if it's breeding on Hen Island in drums, it's breeding at the Rye Nature Center on drums. And I think we should do something about the both of them. Thank you.
So, just one more thing. So, when you're meeting with the county, okay, and obviously you have a relationship with the county that we don't have.
I don't think that that's true. I just think that I'm a good investigator.
Somehow,
I think that I'm a good city manager. I would make a good city manager.
Somehow you have this audience with the county, and they're sharing with you this information. You have a travel bag with those pictures. I imagine that you probably bring them with you where you go, even to the county. And, well, don't you say to the county, hey, look at these 50-gallon drums with the mosquito netting, with the brackish water. Your own website says get rid of standing water. Don't you say to them, if you're the ones that are in charge of enforcing this health code and making sure that West Nile is controlled, what do you say, County of Westchester, about these conditions of which I have pictures?
Joe, I say to the County of Westchester that this is the city of Rye. And these people that sit on this dais are the ones that control the city. We just went through a court battle. And your position was that you didn't have the authority to write these violations. And the Supreme Court of the United States decided that you do have the authority and you do have the power to write these violations. If you want to blame Westchester County, you blame Westchester County. I blame him.
I'm not looking to blame anyone. I
think we got to blame somebody, Joe. I think that somebody has to step up to the plate here and be responsible for this. Somebody has to be responsible to protect the people that I love in this community. And nobody on this dais is doing it.
I'd like the people from the county that you spoke to be at our next meeting to tell us why these drums are either safe or not safe, based on the West Nile that's been discovered at that location. I don't see why that's an unreasonable request.
Joe,
based on the circumstances here.
What about the sewage? What about the potable water?
One at a time.
Why is it okay for you to have fresh water in your house, and it's not okay for me to have fresh water in my house?
One at a time, right? We're talking mosquitoes tonight,
Okay,
but
thank you.